The drama surrounding Anthony Joshua has always lived at the intersection of spectacle and scrutiny. Every time he steps into the ring, the reaction is extreme. Praise turns into pressure. Confidence turns into expectation. And when something goes wrong, the criticism arrives faster than the replay. That is the burden of being the heavyweight standard in a generation obsessed with knockouts, legacies, and instant judgment. Few fighters in modern boxing have been dissected, doubted, and demanded from the way Anthony Joshua has. And yet, through the chaos, through the setbacks, through the nights that nearly broke him, Joshua's career has been defined by moments that remind the world why he was crowned in the first place. In today's boxing landscape, no heavyweight has carried the image of a knockout machine more completely than Anthony Joshua. Olympic gold medalist, chiseled frame, textbook technique layered on top of frightening power. He didn't just look like a champion. He moved like one. Early on, it felt inevitable. But inevitability in boxing is a dangerous illusion. Joshua learned that lesson before the world ever crowned him, back in the amateur days when a loss to Dillian Whyte introduced him to humility long before superstardom. That defeat stayed with him, quietly shaping the discipline and obsession that would later define his rise. When Joshua and Whyte finally collided as professionals, the tension was volcanic. This was not just a fight. It was unfinished business wrapped in pride and personal history. Whyte entered believing he was the more skilled, the more dangerous man, promising not just victory but destruction. Many experts sided with him. The narrative leaned away from Joshua. Blood spilled early, tempers flared, and the fight teetered on the edge of chaos. But as the rounds passed, Joshua's superiority became undeniable. His timing sharpened. His jab began to dictate reality. And the fighter who once lost to Whyte now dismantled him, breaking him down before ending the night with a devastating uppercut that announced Joshua's arrival as something different. Something real. Then came the night that nearly unraveled everything. Andy Ruiz Jr., an opponent dismissed by many as a placeholder, walked into Madison Square Garden and delivered one of the most shocking upsets in boxing history. Joshua was dropped. Hurt. Finished. The heavyweight throne flipped upside down in an instant. The visual alone rewrote narratives. The champion who looked like a sculpted god had fallen to a man who didn't fit the image. And in boxing, perception can be as lethal as a punch. What followed defined Anthony Joshua far more than the loss itself. Ruiz celebrated, indulged, believed destiny had arrived without discipline. Joshua did the opposite. He disappeared into work. He stripped the ego away and rebuilt himself piece by piece. Lighter on his feet, sharper in his mind, more patient in his approach. The rematch wasn't about revenge. It was about correction. Joshua boxed with precision, controlled distance, and dismantled Ruiz with intelligence rather than brute force. He didn't chase a knockout. He chased dominance. And by the final bell, he had reclaimed every belt and rewritten the story of who he was as a fighter. That evolution carried him into one of the defining fights of the modern era. Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko was not just a heavyweight title fight. It was a passing of eras. Klitschko represented long-term dominance, discipline, and control. Joshua represented the future, power, and potential. The fight delivered everything the sport could ask for. Tactical early rounds gave way to explosive momentum shifts. Joshua dropped Klitschko. Klitschko dropped Joshua. And in the crucible of exhaustion and pressure, Joshua found something deeper than power. He found resolve. In the championship rounds, he summoned a ferocity that ended the legend's final stand and etched his own name into heavyweight history. But boxing never stops demanding proof. Losses to Alexander Usyk exposed limitations and forced Joshua into the darkest mental stretch of his career. Confidence wavered. Direction blurred. Retirement was whispered. Depression was spoken aloud. And for the first time, the invincible image cracked completely. Joshua needed more than a win. He needed reassurance that the fire still burned. The rebuild was slow. The performance against Jermaine Franklin did little to quiet doubts. So Joshua stepped into danger again, this time against Robert Helenius. It wasn't perfect, but it was necessary. And when the moment arrived, Joshua detonated a right hand that erased hesitation and reminded the division that his power had never left him. That knockout didn't just end a fight. It reopened the door. Then came the crossover spectacle that demanded a statement. Francis Ngannou arrived with hype, confidence, and belief that raw strength could shortcut elite boxing. Joshua didn't entertain that illusion. He shattered it. From the opening round, he imposed the difference between disciplines. A clean right hand sent Ngannou crashing down. The second knockdown broke resistance, and the final punch rendered doubt obsolete. It was clinical, cold, terrifying. Joshua didn't just win. He defended boxing itself. Now, the conversation turns again. Another test looms. Another spectacle. Another voice claiming belonging without earning it. Anthony Joshua stands once more at the crossroads of legacy and expectation. Every era tests its champions differently. Joshua's test has never been talent, has been resilience. And time after time, he has answered by rebuilding rather than retreating. This is what defines Anthony Joshua. Not perfection, but response. Not image, but adaptation. Not just power, but growth. So now it's your turn. Where does Anthony Joshua rank among the heavyweights of his generation? Has he already secured his legacy, or is the biggest chapter still ahead? And can he silence the next wave of challengers the same way he silenced doubt before? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you want more cinematic, story-driven boxing breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next.